بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله. السلام عليكم. Can you all hear me? So now we're just taking a minute for people to come. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم YouTube. السلام عليكم Instagram. Hope you're all doing well. Where is everyone logging in from? Doesn't know what people do nowadays. I ask where people are logging in from. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum, Carla. Thanks for joining. Salam Lana, welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. You're welcome to tap in or type in your questions. I took some questions from earlier on Instagram, the stories and whatnot, but you're welcome to ask your questions here as well. I think there's a way to do that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa man walah. It's good to be with all of you. Good evening. Live here from Chicago right before Maghrib. Alhamdulillah. It's been a while since we've done some lives. I really would like to be more consistent with these. So inshallah ta'ala, this is my attempt at doing that. And also to talk about something new, not something new at Forward to Health, but maybe a new framing at Forward to Health of really the centerpiece work of really the bread and butter work that we do here at Forward to Health, which is inner work, or what we like to call Nafs work. And what I'd like today to be is something of an introduction, informal kind of introduction about Nafs work and what Nafs work really is about. Other types of words we could use is like heart work, shadow work, trauma work, inner growth work, healing work. But Nafs work I've chosen to run with because it really gets to the matter directly. What is Nafs work? Well, it's development of the Nafs. What is the Nafs? It is the self. And the self within us that is fractured, is broken, is what's needing attention. Because the heart, in some way, the qalb, right? Using this terminology in Islamic medicine, Islamic psychology, and theology, the heart, the qalb, is well. The aql, when you're connected to it, the intellect, is well. The ruh is very well. The ruh is the ruh. The spirit is in the presence of God. You don't have to do much other than just connecting to it, right? But the nafs is the nafs. The nafs is a beast. The nafs can be a beast. The nafs can also be a saint. And it's in that spectrum of possibility that this work is really um, applicable and an imperative for all of us to take and consider well. Between the demon and the angel, between the saint and the devil, is the whole world, is every possibility uh, on the planet and in history and in the future. Nef's work is about being able to develop the nefs through its various stages to that which is most perfect and that which is most human and that which is most Adamic, related to Prophet Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, and that which is most, of course, in its perfection, Muhammadan sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How do we take our souls from being fractured, from being dissociated, from being disembodied, from being distracted from reality, from being disconnected from the body, from the felt sense, from the five outer and five inner senses? How do we take the self from that state to states of consciousness, to states of awareness, to states of self-control, right? Of restraint, of temperance, the cardinal virtue here that's most perhaps applicable is iffa, temperance. How do we temper the nafs? How do we temper its desires, which are very active at the lowest stage of development? The lowest stage, of course, being a nafs al-amara bisu, the nafs that commands to evil or that compels one to evil. But, in clinical work, I don't, for those of you that have been around here for a while, I don't really like that language clinically, the nafs that commands to evil, because it may not look evil and it may not be outwardly or in a sharia manner evil to express oneself through the amara bisut state. But what it will do is lead one to live in an unhealthy way and maintain unhealthy relationships and have this discongruence between the inner and the outer world. That's what the nafs does. So rather than it compelling to evil, the nafs al-amara basu is really one that compels to disembodied fracture, to dissociation, to removal from reality, from living behind a mask. Uh, That is the nafs. It's the false self, right? This is what you find this language amongst the Sufiya, amongst the ulama of the inner. You find that there is this idea of a false self that's taken the place of the true self, which I give to the heart. The heart is the true self. And the nafs, in its lower state, takes over the heart and takes the throne from the heart. And it is a petty tyrant. And it acts out in specific ways, and there's specific patterns and certain constellations of the ego, of the nafs, that we can begin to ascertain and work with in nafs work. But that really is what's happening. You have the qalb, you're born in the qalb, right? You're born in fitra. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. Every child's born in fitra. The fitra is in the heart. What is the fitra? The fitra is like your principial nature. It's like your primary balance that you're born in. You're born balanced and aligned. And then the hadith continues, and then the Jewish families will make their children Jewish, and the Christians will make their children Christian, and the Zoroastrians will make theirs Magians, Zoroastrians, And in some way, the Muslims are supposed to create an environment for the child to maintain its access to the fitrah. But we know our families, we know our communities, and God bless our families and God bless our communities, but sometimes that does not happen. And we end up practicing some sort of cultural Islam. And we end up practicing Islam through a prism of fractured nufus themselves, not having done the nafs work, done the inner work, the developmental work. And so Islam comes out a little bit gnarly, comes out a little bit knotted, comes out a little bit distorted, right? And then we have reactions to that as little children, as little people trying to navigate the world. We're supposed to be a fitra world, but it's not so much a fitra world. And so, what do we do when there's distortions and there's imbalances in the world? We compensate. And that is effectively how we form the nafs. The nafs is a compensatory state that forms in the wake of trauma. And trauma is basically any overwhelming experience. We can talk about trauma and we can leave that for the Q&A or for future sessions, inshallah ta'ala. But trauma is what basically galvanizes the formation of the nafs. It triggers the formation of the nafs. And it happens for all of us, and it must happen because trauma is a fact of life, because the nafs is a fact of life. You must have a nafs. You must contend with yourself. You must have an in for the shaitan to receive the waswasa of shaitan. You must be tested in these ways. These are human tests that are built into the human experience here in dunya. Yeah? So, like, you can't be here and be a perfect Zen baby, "Ah," and just maintain that state until death and just maintain saintliness. You're gonna get tested, right? No one makes it out of even childhood unscathed. Never mind the teenage years and the 20s and the 30s. You're gonna get betrayed. You're gonna get heartbroken. You're gonna experience things that reinforce the fracture of the nafs. It's just gonna happen, and it's gonna be a bullseye arrow from the knowledge of God from pre-eternity for you to heal, to overcome, to return to God. Because this whole nafs work affair is about returning to Allah Ta'ala. That's really what this is all about. It's returning to yourself, returning to the heart, the body, the reality, the fitrah within, and connecting to the fitrah without, which is the natural order, the natural world, other healthy human beings who are in their hearts, the awliya, the salihin, and then Allah Ta'ala Himself, Jalla Jalaluhu, and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's what this work is about. Nafs work is about being able to bring awareness to our specific mask, our persona, our persona. And we all have personas and we all have masks, don't we? I'm very much aware of mine, and may Allah grant me tawfiq in being able to wrestle with mine. I have a beast of a nafs, absolutely. And, maybe we can say even a dragon of a nafs, subhanallah. But, you when you practice the religion, when you do dhikr, when you employ these institutions and these practices and these rituals of nubuwah, of prophethood, of prophecy, you get nur, you get light, you get strength, and you're able to overcome these things and use it as a way of growing up. And this is language that I really like, and it's very specific language that I'll share with you a little bit about. It comes from the work of Ken Wilber, if those of you are familiar with integral theory and Ken Wilber. But he does something very interesting, and he does a lot of interesting things. But one of the things he talks about is this concept of growing up versus waking up. Now, that's very interesting to me. Waking up versus growing up versus waking up. What's the difference? You see, when we talk about personal development, oftentimes we talk about spiritual development. You hear this notion of I need to get close to Allah. I need to make tawbah. I need to get my practice right. I need to get my 5 prayers. I need to fast Ramadan. I need to do all these things, do extra nawafil, do dhikr, so on and so forth. what ends up happening is that we practice a disembodied religion, of rituals, of invocations, of dua, of salah, of suhbah, of khidmah. Even we can do service. We'll do acts of service. We'll do all sorts of things, and we're doing it with intention. Even and that's beautiful, right? But it's somewhat outwardly oriented. It doesn't really necessitate a knowledge of the self. We're actually trying to transcend the self, right? So this is the technology of transcendence, excuse me. This is where you're applying the tools of transcendence. And what happens is that you will begin to transcend. That's just what happens, right? You spend time in an intentional community and you're praying 5 prayers a day and you're doing the dhikr, and you're waking up for tahajjud with them, and you're doing the weekly mawlid, and you're, listening to spiritual counsel throughout the week between, work and the gym and family time. You're marinating in all these meanings and spiritual practices. Week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, a year or two, you're gonna have this transcending experience, right? You're gonna start to grow and wake up to reality. How many of you, I wish I could see you. How many of you have had those experiences, right? Maybe you can indicate something in the chat or whatever, do something on Instagram here to, I'm also on YouTube, by the way. You're on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram. That's why I'm looking this way, and that's why I'm looking that way.